Yo, 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 you already know we're at Lost Lands right now. I'm just kidding. Never mind. We're in Ableton because we're getting down. Today, we're learning how to make a song like SCAREXX and so VALIENT. It is heavy. It is dope. It honestly reminds me of like vastive and layz and rzrkt, like that type of dubstep energy, heavy rhythm. I'm going to show you what's up. Let's go ahead and check it out. You know what it is. Lots of layers, big layers, lots of quarter note basses. We have some fast chop basses too. I'm going to show you everything. If you want this full project, it will be in the Patreon as well. We'll go over all the patches and everything so you guys can get a full understanding of how all these are made. Post-processing is a big thing here. So is layering and sound design. So let's check it all out. The buildup goes into this, which is like a downbeat call. It's really distorted, and this is going to like set everything off. And as soon as this happens, we have a big dynamic shift and go to a vocal. Goes clap, vocal, and then goes straight into the response bass, which is our main. This has a sustain, which is 2 layers in the sussy. This layer, this layer. We'll go over those, but first we're going to go over the quarter note basses and break down each layer. One of the main things here is this is going to be in my lows group, so all the lows are playing. All of our main sounds, which is 3 mid basses and 1 sub. These main sounds are grouped together, and we're distorting them together. So the saturator is at 6 decibels of drive, but 23% dry wet. And the G clip is clipping 3 decibels. So really just pushing the sound and pulling the sub and the basses together and making them loud. This really is super, super helpful. You can listen to before and after as well. This is before, after. It almost sounds like blown up and too much, and you're going to want to keep a fine balance and try to see what sounds good in the mix and experiment with doing this. Listen without the sustain. So you can see that sussy is filling up a lot of the mix. Now the first patch here is going to be one of my favorite patches ever, and it's from the Ivory Pack. This will be in the description. Make sure you support him and his amazing sounds. I use his presets all the time, but this one we're using is the gnarly one. And it's going to have an EQ8 cutting the lows after. We have the loud rack up next, and then another EQ8 cutting the lows. This loud rack is going to be used throughout pretty much all the tracks. So just look at it here. It's an OTT saturator, followed by another OTT and saturator. Then we have an EQ8, glue compressor, utility, and this JST clip at the end, giving a little bit of volume. So this is the loud rack that we're going to be using basically on everything. So if you want to recreate it, you can recreate it here. Otherwise, this is how we have it on this first layer. EQ8, loud rack, EQ8, turn them off. That's what we're doing to the sound. And if you want to look at this patch, try to recreate it, you can look at this here. And then we're going to go into the next patches. This is really controlling a lot of the mids, the grunginess. The sub is doing a lot of work. And the sub is really giving it that extra oomph. And then we're basically cutting the sub out just to leave the mids in those later EQs. And then Here are some of the LFOs on the effects. All right, cool. So this is a good bass. We turn this down to -4. This is filling the like low mid frequencies, but then we have to start filling the high frequencies. So we have 2 more layers, this one and this one. We can look at these patches here. First off, this shifter doesn't need to be there, but this overdrive is on 50%, adding distortion. We have that loud rack I just showed you. EQ8 cutting at 100, and then this shifter is pitching it up in the fine and the frequency mode. Effects off. Effects on. So you see it's like cutting out frequencies, turning it down. We're like putting it in the mix. With Serum, we can go in here. Now to make this bass, we're going to use basic shapes and odd pass, which is in spectral. Gonna make this LFO, shark fin, trigger, quarter note rate. LFO2 is gonna look like this. Little ramp up, quarter note rate, trigger. LFO1 going on the level, oscillator A all the way up, as well as the sub all the way up. Randoms are turned all the way down on both. FM from B is turned on, oscillator A, turn it up to 70%. Oscillator B, wavetable positions 53. And this LFO2 is on that wavetable position going up 14. This is changing the tone over time as it moves. Same thing with Bin Plus. Bin Plus is at 58%, it's going up 34. This is for LFO2. So LFO1 is doing like push-pull motions. LFO2 is controlling like more timbre, different frequencies. Go back to your filter, turn it on high notch 12. This is going to create like the vowel-y talking sound. So cutoff is going to go down to 29. Put the LFO on the cutoff, make it go up 36. Frequency will go the opposite direction. We're going to put it on 67. And the LFO goes on the frequency, going backwards, -23. Resonance is up a little bit at 10%. And now these 2 notches basically touch each other as the sound moves. So check that out. Off. On. So this is doing a lot for the actual movement of the sound and the dynamics. Very good. Very nice. Very fine. So after you have this, go to your effects, add on hyper dimension, mixes on 28%, dimensions all the way down. Distortions diode 2, return drive all the way down, and adding LFO1 to the drive. This is for the push and pull motion. This is the only distortion that lets us go to 0, so that's why we're using it this way. Phaser, mix is being used the same way. LFO on the mix going up. Depth is 18%, so we're moving these knobs to the left, making it sound deeper, darker. Frequencies at 90 hertz. Feedbacks, it's 37. Compressors, most of the bands turned on. Gain is up at 14 decibels. Turn it up. And then lastly, we have this comb filter, cut off on 62, and it's going up 3 with this LFO1. Resonance up at 39, drive is up at 49, and this comb filter is doing a lot to the sound. Turn it off. On. Sick. So that is the first high, and then we're adding another comb layer, basically. So EQ8, loud rack EQ8 is the post-processing signal flow here. And Serum, we're going to load up Grimace. We're going to focus on making these wide. So this is 3. This could be 3 as well. And then we have -1, -1, or octaves. LFO2 is going to be our main LFO here, and this is going to be on the wavetable position and on Bin Plus. Wavetable position is going to be at 53, and the LFO goes up 16. On the Bin Plus, it's at 11%, and then you go up 48 with that LFO. Make sure the LFO is a little shark fin like this on trigger, quarter note rate, and then turn FM from B on oscillator A, and turn it up to 39%. We're going to leave the regular saw wave on oscillator B, and then go to the filter and turn on the band 12, which is in normal. I'm sorry, band 24. cutoff is at 73 hertz. And we'll put LFO2 on the cutoff up 26. This is going to add movement. And the drive is going to be controlled with LFO3. So this is adding more movement going up on the filter. This is the shape of LFO3. And this is creating different movement while the main LFO is playing. Resonance 32. We'll head to the FX. Phaser is on. Rate 0.8. Frequencies 152. LFO is on this frequency knob going up 10. And the mix is on 71%. Just adding some different tones. Compressors on multiband. Gains at 0, and we turn it up to 37. And then the EQ is going to be doing a lot of movement. These little notches here. So frequency is at 99 hertz with the LFO going up 26. The other frequency on the notch is at 3600 going down negative 26. And then we'll put the LFO on the gain so that this notch moves up as it's moving. And this gain knob is at negative 10 while the LFO is going up 46. So this EQ is doing a lot of movement with the sound too. Filter, EQ, movement, very nice. Then hyper, we're going to turn the mix all the way down, but we'll use the dimension. We'll add the LFO to the dimensions and mix, going up 66 for some nice width as it's moving. And then lastly, that comb filter at 42 hertz, going up 2. Resonance 37, drive 31, and the damps at 35. Another comb filter, getting that sound. So we combine our two highs with the low, grungy. And then we have the sub that's playing with it as well. And remember, these are all being squished together by the G-clip and the saturator. The sub is at -3 volumes. We're turning this down and we're adding the Dripment Systo sub here. This is from the Systo sub video, so go watch that if you want to learn how to make this. This is a really good sub. And then this is what the patch looks like. Very simple. A little bit of coarse up here, you know what I'm saying? A little bit of that coarse. So that's our sub. And then keep in mind, all of our basses are turned down so we can give them some room because we're pushing it with the saturator and G-clip. Now when you add the fast chops, we're adding a lot of movement here. So these are just going at quarter note, I believe. No, eighth note, it looks like. So these eighth note basses are being post-processed pretty heavily so that we can get them big. This was from the Alien Park sample pack, the 1 and 2. Originally sounded like this. So I needed to make it fatter. So basically I added this loud rack. This is an easy loud rack. Glue compressor, saturator, an OTT, and an amp. Usually the loud rack doesn't have the amp, so it sounds like this. And then I added an amp to get more distortion on heavy at 26%. I use a shifter on freak mode to turn down the fine so that it gets like darker and deeper. You could move this to taste, you know. Add a multiband dynamics, make it loud and clean. Add a comb filter, once again, bringing in that comb filter, bringing it down to 83. And originally, the sound was kind of like this, so I had to fade the sound. Because that tail, so I faded and chopped the sound so that we didn't have these big tails. Keep it clean and tight because they're fast. Out of the EQ8, we're now like fitting it in the mix, removing these frequencies because they don't need to play when the other big chuggies are playing. You know what I'm saying? And then we're adding a last final supporting bass on the offbeats to just give a little bit of oomph on that exact hit. Doing the same thing, adding that loud rack. No amp this time. The easy loud rack. And the EQ8, just cutting those lows. Then I have a JST clip at the end of this, just to make sure it doesn't go past 0. And you'll see this now goes twice as fast at 16ths, these basses, in the second section. So that's how we change it up in the next section. It sounds empty right now because we don't have the sussies. So let's turn the sussies on. Cool. So this is a sustain that I made in a previous Excision video. It's called the Dripment SCAREXX dog. And you can go back to that video if you want to watch it in detail. But basically we have 2 versions of it playing. The only difference is the FM from B. As we move this up and down, we have different tones that are available. So we can move that. If you look at this one, it's turned down at 29. And this one up top is going to be at 45. That's the main difference between these. But basically we have LFO1 being sustained very long at 2 bars. And then this is going to be going on the FM from B, the sync, this cutoff, this frequency. And it's going to be adding a lot of movement. These levels are going to be at 75%, so just at the default. And then these effects, distortion, diode 2, compression, turning down the threshold to make it loud, a little bit of verb, and reverb filter to really get that tone. So before reverb, after. So this reverb filter is doing a lot to the sustain. Cutoffs on 23 going up 2. Now the loud rack is going to be followed by a reverb. Hybrid reverb on 13%, using a classic plate, long decay. Then we're cutting some of the lows here. So that's our high version, high frequencies. Then we add like some lower mid frequencies just by moving that FM from B. We're using 2 layers here just to get loud, just to get thick. We're layering lows, mids, and highs all together to make it sound full. This is the mids, highs, and then our sub is following the sustain rhythm. The sub is not going quarter note, but rather going in a sustained pattern and following the sustained bass. So that's something to keep in mind as well. That's all we doing, man. The drums are simple too, just simple rides. Doesn't matter what ride you use. Some claps, not snares. And then the rhythm pattern, just kick, kick on clap. Find a nice fat kick. And then for the flow, I don't know if you see, but we're working. So as the drop starts, we go all the way here. We have a 4-bar section. So we're usually working in 4-bar sections like this. So it's call. We have this nice vocal. Then we get into the response. So a whole bar is the call, and the call buddy, I call it. Response goes all the way until the last snare, which is at 40.3, and then that's when the fill starts. And then we wrap around, and it goes back to the same loop. We change up the vocal, and we change up the speed of this. And that's how we keep it moving, keep the audience interested. That's how we do it. That's how we get down. I hope you guys learned a lot out of this. This is fun making music. If you guys need help, I do lessons all the time. Just let me know. I'll help you. New sample packs are on my website, dripment.com. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what other videos you guys want next. Keep it real. Stay fresh. Later.